its focal point is the unity of God, the oneness of God. It's very monotheistic focused. And with that is also God's omnipotence and greatness. That, in and of itself, relegates humans to a much more lower position, and we are told that we are trustees of this earth, and what we've been given is essentially a trust, and we have to take care of it, and how we handle it. Yes, it does mean that we have some benefits, but at the same time we are also held extremely liable and accountable for all that we do. The other two areas of focus in Islam are moderation and balance. And that is what believing Muslims are supposed to live by, moderation and balance. And so far as the first concept of understanding our position, I think one of the verses in the Quran kind of sets it very clear about what humans are like. And to understand the issue of the trust. In the Quran it says in chapter 33, verse 72, "We did indeed offer the trust to the heavens and earth and the mountains, but they refused to undertake it, being afraid thereof. But humankind undertook it. Indeed, humankind is unjust and foolish." And so, understanding that as humans, we sometimes think we are in this high position and that we have claim to so much, but we don't recognize our own foolishness in some of the things we do. The same personification at the same time is also shown for the earth in general, where in the Quran there's a chapter that's called the earthquake, and it's very specific about the coming of the end of humans' time on earth. And it says, when the earth is shaken with its final earthquake, and it throws up or discharges all its burdens, and humans will say, "What is wrong with it?" That day it will report its news. It will be a witness unto everything that we did. And so this kind of personification, though very poetic, is also understood to be very real for Muslims. We do believe that everything that is around us will be witnesses on the Day of Judgment for our handiwork. So for humans, what we're doing here, what we're sowing here, is absolutely, definitely something that we are accountable for. And that comes in all shapes and forms. The elements of the earth, water, even how we conduct ourselves in warfare. It's known that the Prophet said, "You were not even," and I have the statement he made, but essentially you were not allowed to burn trees, especially fruitful ones. You're not allowed to hurt animals unless you were using something for consumption. You weren't allowed to kill it. Aside from the collateral damage of humans, you also had to pay attention to your surroundings. So there's a lot more, but I'm going to keep it brief and let my other panelists go ahead and talk. But there's just a wealth of stuff in Islam about our obligation to what we're doing to everything on this planet and to one another.
I'm Sid Kere, representing the Hindu point of view. Thank you for this opportunity. Now, relationship with the world, with the universe. Now, God in Hinduism is there's a lot of questions about the nature of God. What is God? Essentially, the highest form, the most philosophical form of Hinduism, it says God, we don't know what God is. No beginning. The way it is described is, what is reality? Reality and God are the same thing. What is truth as against, what is reality as against appearance? Now, the term, the word that's used is sat, the reality. That's the the philosophical definition of God, a philosophical term that's used, Sat. Now, what is the nature of Sat? Now, no beginning, Anadi, no beginning, no end, Ananta, there's no end, and Avyakta, unmanifest. You see, it starts with a lot of ignorance about what it is, and then it goes on to speculate. And then one of the speculations is this universe is an expression of God, expression of the Sat, the expression of the reality. So, universe is the manifest aspect of God as against the unmanifest. That's our speculation. That's our philosophical speculation. Maybe, is it the truth? Hindus don't claim it is the truth, but it's an approach to truth. See, this is the attitude that they take in all respects. Because it's an expression of the Sat, of the reality, whose true nature we really don't know. So we need to treat this universe with respect. We need to treat the world with respect. The trees and the animals and the earth itself, the mountains, the seas. We need to treat it with respect, and certainly we can use it to our benefit. We can exploit it to our benefit, but we always treat it with respect. Don't take it for granted. There's no sentence in the Hindu scriptures which says God making the statement, "I've given this earth for your use." There's no exclusive or a definite statement like that. It's the understanding is we use it for our benefit wisely. That is, of course, there is room for other creatures here, both plant and animal species. So there is a reverence for life. Of course, the reverence for life cannot be absolute, because we have to use, exploit other animals for a benefit. That's the law of nature. The higher life form uses, the lower life form, it feeds on it sometimes. So that is understood. So that is essentially, it's a respect for creation. And then, of course, specifically, you might have heard that the Indians or the Hindus consider certain rivers to be sacred, because Hinduism is mainly in India. We consider the Ganges River there as sacred, and certain trees are sacred, and certain animals are sacred, and so on. Those are the specifics in which, at first glance you might think it's superstitious, but the basic underlining is this is how they try to make the common man show his respect for the universe.
Richard, go ahead.
Archie said that we were given the questions in advance. I chose not to look at them. But I will be glad to answer the question, because it may interest you to know that I graduated from a Christian college, Presbyterian-related school. I went to graduate school. I went to seminary, spent 4 years in seminary, and then went to work for the National Association of Evangelicals, and was there over 25 years, and the question was never posed to me. The question that you've asked, Archie, was never posed to me. It never came up in a conversation. Between 1970 and the year 2000, the scholars have looked back now and said for 30 years, all of the writings in the evangelical world, analyzing them all, when tabulated, to connect the dots between the doctrine of creation and what is our responsibility to the environment and to creation, well, the sum total of all of that was zero. By all the professors at over 100 colleges and a similar amount of seminaries, over 30 years, nada. So when I was confronted, to put a point on this, by the reality of climate change when invited in 2002 to Oxford, confronted with the reality of climate change, I had to ask myself, since I was persuaded by the science for the first time in an aha moment. In other words, I'd never considered these issues really seriously in any way, and no one either in my community, nor in the leadership of the Evangelical Association has ever seriously, really seriously considered these issues. I was confronted by the reality of climate change, and I had this aha moment. I had a conversion, and I said, my God, what is it that is our duty, our responsibility? And the answer, as I began to explore it, was stewardship. That was what I learned from Genesis 2:12, that we're to care for it until it, all the way to the last book of the Bible, Revelation, where it says in Revelation 11:18, in the Apostle John's vision, speaking for God, I will destroy those who destroy the earth. In other words, from the first to the last, there is this teaching of stewardship. It was never posed to me, Archie. And so I've begun this quest that began in 2002. This is 2014. It's 12 years later, to discover what all that means. And I've discovered that we have to really begin to see the world differently. That's the vision, to see and think more clearly. Secondly, our responsibility as a result of stewardship is to care more deeply about the earth and what it means. And then lastly, to act more boldly on its behalf. So that's my answer.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was eloquently said. Do you have any comments to each other before we move on to the next question? Oh, we're good for now? Okay.
I personally think Christianity has a lot to learn from the other faith groups. I think we have a special culpability that's come from a dominionist mentality that taught us for many, many years not to care for creation. Hence we created this term, creation care. It's really only about 14 years old. It's become common parlance now in our movement that we have to do this. But we never had a way of thinking about it that way before. But we have a lot to learn from other faiths, I've learned. But I also think that one of the accusations against those of us who think like I do is that, well, we become pantheists. That we fail to distinguish the relationship between God and nature. And so I don't believe that. I'm not a pantheist. I'm an Orthodox Christian, but I also believe I can learn from what other faith traditions teach. How would you respond to that? Okay.
What is pantheist?
Okay, we have a question. What's a pantheist?
Pantheist.
Yeah.
Many seeing God in different forms.
In all forms. All
Seeing
forms.
God in all forms. Pantheist. The Hindus don't have any problem with that. God is one, and no form, no attributes, no form. That means nirakara, and no attributes, no qualities. Nirguna, nirguna, nihi. You recognize as no, not. That means negative. God essentially has no qualities. I mean, it doesn't look like a human being. We refer to God in terms of our own humanity because that's the way it's convenient for us, because we are human. Somewhere else in the universe, another alien race, far, far away from here, might have a different notion of God. They might refer to God in their own form, whatever that form is. So, the question of dealing with the formless in human terms. And also we have the